Is there hope?
All things are possible through him.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So if the first two parts of this sequence were about securing your own ground, your individual sovereignty.
First legally, then financially.
Right, exactly. Today feels different. This is the final briefing, and it feels like we're moving from defense to offense. We're not just securing our own position anymore.
We're starting to analyze the architecture of the opposition itself.
Yeah, we're finally looking at the enemy's system.
We are. We're moving past the symptoms, the daily frustrations, and we're starting to confront the actual structure. I think a lot of people feel this deep frustration.
Oh, absolutely.
They get involved, they win a local election, maybe they overturn some, burdensome regulation, they feel like they've won.
A real victory.
For a moment, yes.
Yeah.
But then 6 months pass, and the bigger picture, the global trajectory, it hasn't changed.
If anything, it feels worse.
It often does. So our mission today really is to answer that core question for you, for listener. Why do these political and cultural victories feel so futile?
That futility, that is the defining feeling of this whole battle, isn't it? You pour all this energy into fighting one specific thing, one threat.
And then the moment you cut it down, a vacuum is created.
And two new threats pop up in its place, things you never even saw coming.
The enemy just seems to regenerate endlessly.
So to get to the bottom of this, to understand that resilience, we're synthesizing two pretty powerful documents today.
They're remarkable, yeah. The first is the Gemini Schools of Cain audit.
Okay.
It's basically a forensic analysis of the seed lines, let's call them, of systemic control. It traces how these institutions were designed, going back centuries.
And the second one?
That's the Pharmakeia report.
Yeah.
And it really dissects the modern mechanisms of mass sedation, of dependency, what it calls the subscription body model.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to structure this whole deep dive around three core concepts that really define this invisible conflict.
Right.
First, we have to tackle the iron veil. This is the fundamental illusion of choice that keeps us all fighting shadows.
Then, after that, we have to confront the Hydra mechanism.
The regenerative tyranny, the reason why fighting symptoms is just a guaranteed way to lose.
And finally, we get to the solution, the cauterization. The radical idea of exodus that's required for any kind of actual lasting freedom.
We have to start where the deception begins. It has to be the iron veil.
It has to be. It's the reason why good people who are fundamentally on the same side.
People who want liberty.
Exactly. It's why they spend all their time and energy arguing about these tiny, distracting differences.
And I want to speak to you, the listener, directly here. You feel this. You argue with your neighbor about politics. You get angry about the person in office, right? But no matter who wins the election, the cost of living keeps going up, society feels like it's decaying faster, and the bureaucracy, it just gets bigger and more intrusive.
It doesn't matter which party's in power. The fundamental direction is the same.
So what is that disconnect? What's going on?
That disconnect is the veil. The iron veil, as the sources define it, is a structural, invisible wall. And it's separating two completely distinct realities.
Okay, a wall. Between what and what?
On one side, you've got the public, that's us. The voters, the consumers, the activists, people watching the news.
And we're all busy debating.
The projected symptoms of power, the shadows on the wall.
And on the other side of this wall?
That's where the actual power resides. The central bankers, the massive supranational institutions, the people who own the controlling mechanisms.
The ones setting the rules of the game.
They're the ones who set the economic and administrative operational parameters for the entire machine. They're not on the ballot.
So the people we're told to fight, the politicians, the media pundits, the CEOs pushing the latest ideology, they're not the source of power.
Not at all. They are the interface.
They're shadows, just shadows projected onto the veil.
And that is the structural genius of the system. Think about it. The politician, the CEO, the media anchor, they are designed to be highly visible.
And highly volatile.
Exactly. They're there to absorb all the dissent, all the fury of the population. So if you spend all your time, your energy, your money
arguing about them, voting for or against them,
you are wasting your time.
Wow.
Because the source of the light, the hand controlling the puppet show, remains completely untouched, completely hidden behind that veil.
That explains so much of the exhaustion people feel. You fight and you fight, but the actual infrastructure of the problem never changes.
It remains intact.
But hold on, how can we say they serve the same system when we see this huge divide, a left wing and a right wing? They seem to be in total opposition.
This is where the audit gets really interesting. It pulls back the curtain and shows the fundamental unity of the structure. The image it uses is the bird of prey.
Okay.
So you see two wings, right? One is labeled right wing, the other left wing, and they're flapping. They appear to be in opposition. They're creating all this noise and fury and winds.
Which is all we see, all we focus on.
But the audit is clear. Both of those wings are attached to the exact same body, the same administrative, financial, compliance-driven body of the central controller.
So when the system needs something,
When the system needs austerity, both wings find a way to vote for it. When the system requires an expansion of federal power, both wings contribute. They just use different words, different rhetoric to sell it to their bases.
so the endless, highly emotional debate over who is flying the plane,
The Democrat or the Republican, the progressive or the conservative.
it's just a distraction, a strategic distraction from the fact that the plane itself, the machine, is designed for one thing.
Predatory extraction and control. And the pilot's flavor is irrelevant.
Because the core parameters of the machine, they are never on the ballot. They're never up for debate.
Precisely. And to understand those parameters, you have to look at how the system is designed from the ground up. And for that, we have to turn to the Schools of Cain audit.
Depression gene,
Education as the ultimate design specification for systemic control.
this is a huge claim. To say that the American school system, which we're taught to believe is about liberty and critical thought, is actually based on a foreign authoritarian model. Where does the audit even begin to trace that?
It's a forensic trace. The audit argues that the modern Western education model, the one that standardizes, categorizes, and processes millions of kids every year, it's a synthetic construct.
It didn't just grow organically.
Its roots are not in organic learning communities. They are in military and administrative necessity, specifically from 18th century Prussia.
Okay, let's get specific. The audit traces this back to King Frederick the Great, his, what was it, General Angel Reglement?
General Angel Reglement, yeah, in 1763. And you have to understand the context. This wasn't some burst of enlightenment thinking about educating the masses.
It was a reaction to something.
A direct reaction to military humiliation.
Yeah.
Prussia had just been devastated in war, and the monarchy realized it lacked two critical resources.
Which,
First, a unified national identity. Its people were all from disparate regions. And second, a reliable, unquestioning supply of soldiers. And just as important, obedient civil servants to staff the growing state bureaucracy.
so this decree, this law, mandated compulsory schooling for all young citizens.
Instantly, giving the state total control over the foundational programming of its entire population.
And the curriculum wasn't about, fostering individual genius or teaching classical philosophy.
No, it was purely functional. It was designed to serve the state's economic and military goals. The audit points to these, almost absurdly specific examples.
Like what?
Part of the curriculum was instruction on how to cultivate mulberry trees for silk production.
Seriously?
Yes, it wasn't general botany. It was a specific top-down economic project that Frederick the Great was pushing. The message couldn't have been clearer.
The child isn't an individual soul to be cultivated.
The child is a resource to be processed and aimed directly at the state's military and economic machinery.
Okay, so Frederick the Great lays the institutional groundwork. But the audit says Johann Gottlieb Fichte provided the philosophical soul, the spiritual architecture for this whole thing.
He did in his addresses to the German nation in 1807. And this is where it gets really, really chilling for anyone who cares about freedom.
What was his intent? He was pretty open about it, wasn't he?
He was completely transparent. This is while Berlin was under Napoleonic occupation, and he was desperate to create a population that was immune to foreign ideas. He said this new education had to achieve something radical.
And that radical goal was?
He explicitly stated that its goal must be the complete destruction of freedom of will.
Wow. Not guiding the will, not shaping it, destroying it, eliminating the very possibility of independent thought.
Yes. His stated objective was that after the students went through this programming, they would be literally incapable of thinking or acting in any way other than how their schoolmasters, the state's representatives, wished.
He wanted a collective will.
A collective will that the state could, and this is his phrase, rely on with confidence and certainty. He was designing a manufacturing process for total compliance.
That is the very definition of structural tyranny. You don't need external control anymore.
Because the control is internalized.
Which leads right to his next idea, right? The police inside the mind.
It's the logical conclusion. Fichte argued that if the state could just control those formative educational years, they could effectively eliminate the need for expensive armies or police forces to keep the population in line.
Why have an officer on every corner?
When the police force is installed inside the mind of every single citizen, through internalized obedience and these self-policing mechanisms, the system generates its own compliance. It's brilliant in a terrifying way.
So then Horace Mann, the first secretary of the Massachusetts Board of Education, he travels to Prussia in 1843. He sees this system.
And he's not just impressed, he's captivated, not by the intellectual rigor, but by the sheer efficiency of the manufactured social order.
And you have to remember the context in America at that time.
Rapid industrialization, huge waves of immigration, a lot of class friction. Mann saw what he considered chaos in the diverse, decentralized American education models.
And he saw the Prussian model as the solution.
He concluded in his 7th annual report that this standardized system was the perfect tool to iron out all those class and ethnic distinctions, to create a single, homogenized, predictable American identity.
But surely people at the time saw it for what it was, right? They must have called it a tool of despotism.
Oh, they did. And he acknowledged the criticism, but he just dismissed it. He praised the order and efficiency above everything else. His focus was on the classification of students.
The age segregation, putting kids in different rooms.
It was a direct mirror of the sequential production stages in a factory. Mann was consciously importing the factory model as a method of social control, not intellectual liberation.
So when we call it the factory model today, it's not a metaphor we're applying after the fact.
No, it's a literal description of the original design intent. Standardization, throughput, and the efficiency of compliance. That was always valued over independent critical thought.
And the audit says the structural vestiges of this are still with us. They're operating as these subtle, continuous conditioning mechanisms.
Absolutely. Take the Bell schedule.
Right. We just assume 50-minute blocks are the best way to learn.
But the audit reveals its true function. It is Pavlovian conditioning for industrial and administrative labor. The segmentation of your time, signaled by a sudden jarring sound, teaches you to switch tasks instantly on command.
Whether you're in deep focus or not, whether the task is done or not.
It doesn't matter. The bell rings, you move. It trains the mind to prioritize administrative routine and external cues over the natural rhythm of deep work. It's habituation.
And the physical layout, too. The rows of desks.
The rows and panopticons. Desks fixed in rows, all facing a single authority figure at the front. It physically reinforces the passive recipient role of the student. It's built for unilateral transmission of state-sanctioned knowledge and easy surveillance.
It's fish ideal, the silent, submissive, compliant pupil.
These are not bugs in the system. They're design features, and they are aimed at crushing self-sovereignty.
So if you really absorb that, the whole landscape just shifts. The fight isn't about whether we have a Democrat or a Republican Secretary of Education.
It's about the machine's core operational parameters, the source code. And that code was written 260 years ago with the express purpose of systematically destroying free will to produce predictable, compliant subjects.
The iron veil, then, is the political layer that's just protecting that foundational source code.
And until we're willing to address the source code, fighting the shadows on the veil is just an exercise in structural futility.
Before we move on, we have to let that sink in. Fist's intent. If the goal was to eliminate the ability to choose, then everything that follows, the debt, the despair, the sense of powerlessness, it's not an accidental failure of the system.
It's the intended output.
Which brings us right to part 2. The cost of compliance. If the system is designed to process these subjects, what's it harvesting from them? The economic audit, it reveals a financial black hole.
And it confirms that two wings, one bird concept we talked about.
Yeah.
Because both political parties have presided over this exact same predatory extraction mechanism.
The social contract around education is just, it's gone.
It has utterly collapsed. For generations, the promise was simple. Go to college, take on some debt, sure, but you'll graduate into a high-wage economy. You'll pay it off quickly, you'll build capital, you'll buy a house.
That promise is now a lie.
The investment guarantees the debt, but it no longer guarantees the stability.
Let's put some hard numbers on this. The source material talks about the great divergence, the inflation data since 1980s.
It's staggering. Since 1980, college tuition has gone up by about 180%. And that's adjusted for inflation.
180%. That's hyperinflation, but it's concentrated in one specific area.
The one sector that grants you the credential you need to even enter the middle class.
Okay, so the price of the ticket tripled. What about the return? What happened to wages for degree holders over that same period?
Catastrophe. Median wage growth for degree holders, again, inflation adjusted, has gone up by only about 5% between 2000 and 2020.
So just to be clear, the price of entry went up 180%, while the price for entering barely budged.
That's the debt trap. That's the mechanism. You have graduates starting their lives with 5, sometimes 6 figures of debt, and that debt service consumes a massive chunk of their income right when they should be building wealth.
It prevents capital accumulation. You can't save, you can't buy a home, you can't start a family.
It creates a new class of what the audit calls the indentured educated poor. A huge percentage of their life's productivity is immediately siphoned off just to service these institutional loans, often with interest rates that make it a life sentence.
And the ridiculous thing is, all that tuition money, it's not even going to the teachers or the students. The teacher pay penalty is at a record high. Where is the money going?
It's being absorbed by administrative bloat, massive increases in non-instructional staff, huge managerial salaries, fancy new buildings, redundant departments. All of it is designed to manage compliance, not to foster learning.
The audit calls this a feudal structure, and it points to the endowment paradox.
Which is just impossible to reconcile.
Yeah.
Harvard's endowment is over $51 billion. Yale's is over $41 billion.
These aren't nonprofits.
They're massive tax-exempt hedge funds that happen to have universities attached to them. They are permanent, growing pools of capital.
So the institution, the Lord, hoards tax-free wealth in perpetuity, while the student, the serf, has to take on massive debt just to get the credential required to work in the economy. The extraction is systemic.
And we see the human cost of this, the devastating cost, in the student poverty metrics. It's shocking.
You don't associate college with homelessness.
But the data is undeniable. The National Post-Secondary Student Aid Study found that 23% of undergraduates experience food insecurity. That is 1 in 4 students worried about where their next meal is coming from.
And housing is even worse in some places.
Yes, 8% of undergraduates experience homelessness. And in some urban community colleges, that number can be as high as 60%.
The system is taking huge amounts of money from them while failing to provide for their most basic survival needs.
Which proves the point. The system isn't broken. It's functioning perfectly as a predatory extraction mechanism. It's designed to transfer wealth upward and produce an anxious, indebted, and therefore compliant workforce.
And that financial stress, that precarity, it has a direct consequence on the mind and the soul. The human outcomes audit. It's about the manufacturing of sickness.
The cost of compliance is paid in mental health.
The epidemic of despair. That's the term it uses. It's the most alarming output of this whole Prussian model today.
It is crushing the human spirit. If you compare the data from just 2015 to 2024, the numbers aren't just going up, they are skyrocketing.
Okay, let's hear them.
We've seen student anxiety increase by 78.25%. Depression is up 73.04%.
And the one that speaks to the deepest level of failure.
Suicidal ideation. It has increased by a critical 92.52%.
Almost doubled. In less than a decade, we have almost twice as many young people considering ending their own lives.
When suicide is the second leading cause of deaths for people between 10 and 34, you have to look at the systems you're forcing them into. The audit identifies specific structural drivers for this. It's not just a series of individual tragedies.
It's a systemic output.
Right. First, there's the debt stress endemic. That one's obvious. High debt, financial fear. It correlates directly with stress and depression. The fear of failure isn't just a bad grade anymore.
It's the fear of a financial catastrophe you can never escape.
But the deeper driver connects right back to Fichte's original design. Agency thwarting.
Okay, what is that?
Well, psychological frameworks, like self-determination theory, show that for human beings to thrive, they need 3 things: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. The rigid, standardized, externally controlled school model, the bells, the tests, the bureaucracy. It is structurally designed to thwart autonomy.
You are trained from childhood to believe you have no sovereignty, no say over your path, your time, your learning. You are a subject receiving instruction.
Not a sovereign initiating discovery.
And that lack of agency leads to what the audit calls languishing mental health.
Students aren't just stressed, they're empty, hollowed out, stagnant. They lack intrinsic purpose, because the system demands total compliance and external validation, the perfect score, the right credential, while actively destroying the internal motivation that allows a person to thrive.
The system succeeded. It broke the will, and now that broken will has mutated into a massive spiritual and mental health crisis.
And this is where it gets really interesting,
Yeah.
because now we move from diagnosis to resistance. We see the system as operating as designed. But when we try to fight back, when we win a small victory,
The beast just regenerates.
this is the Hydra mechanism.
Regenerative tyranny. It's structural resistance. You, the citizen, you spend all your resources, time, money, political capital to fight one bad policy, one head of the Hydra.
You win. You cut it off. You celebrate.
But the system immediately grows two new heads, two new symptoms of control, or two new massive distractions for everyone you manage to cut off.
Let's use the most vivid recent example from the report. Citizens mobilized and successfully stopped the initial public health mandates. Let's call that head one, the physical control vector.
Okay, so head one is gone. What happened next?
The system didn't retreat. It just shifted the axis of control. It immediately grew digital ID and climate emergency as heads 2 and 3.
So while we were celebrating the end of one specific mandate,
The system was using that exact same time to build the digital infrastructure for permanent surveillance and to pivot the entire global financial and social machine towards a new, all-encompassing crisis.
you spent a year fighting the mask. They spent a year building the walls of the digital prison.
The fundamental error is fighting the symptom, the head, instead of the body that generates the heads.
You have to understand the regenerative mechanism itself.
Which brings us to the Sophronos Report on pharmakeia. This is the spirit that weaves the deception across all ages and all control vectors.
Let's go deep on this term because it's often misunderstood. Pharmakeia.
Right. The root is pharmakon. It means drug, medicine, or poison. But in ancient Greek usage, especially in the context of magic or religious ritual, pharmakeia meant the use of drugs and potions, often hallucinogens, in combination with sorcery.
So it's translated as witchcraft or sorcery in texts like Galatians and Revelation.
Exactly. The sources are clear. The use of these substances was tied directly to inducing altered states of mind, to blurring discernment. It was about delivering drug spells that would counterfeit spiritual experiences and enforce control through deception.
So the goal was always psychological and spiritual control, achieved through chemical means.
And the Sophronos Report draws a provocative parallel here. Revelation 18 warns that Babylon deceives all nations by thy sorceries, by thy pharmakeia.
Yeah.
The report argues that this ancient term is a perfect fit for the modern pharmaceutical and technological complex, big pharma and big tech,
Suggesting they are the modern mechanism for mass manipulation.
delivering dependency and control that dulls spiritual awareness and fosters compliance. It's the same spirit of deception, just operating through a different platform.
And the Hydra heads are now digital. They use the same psychological control loops as the ancient potions.
Let's talk specifics, the new poisons, starting with digital morphine.
The infinite scroll.
On every social media platform, we all know this feeling. You pick up your phone to check one thing.
And 45 minutes of your life is just gone. And you feel slightly worse than when you started.
That is a digital incantation. It's a mechanism explicitly designed to hijack your dopamine reward system. Every swipe, every refresh, it's a tiny hit of instant gratification. It trains you to crave endless novelty without ever finding satisfaction.
And it's eroding the parts of our brain responsible for deep focus and willpower.
The report calls it the rosary of distraction, a perpetual beadless chain that pulls your mind into a state of continuous low-grade hypnosis. It sedates you. It erodes the vigilance you need to fight real battles. Your mind is constantly stimulated, but completely incapable of focus.
And then there's the even more potent form of digital pharmakeia.
Pornography as pacifier. This is a massive structural problem that directly affects the ability of men in particular to stand in command. The data is brutal,
It's a dopamine flood.
a flood that far exceeds any natural reward. It leads directly to desensitization, arousal addiction, and apathy. And the analysis connects this straight back to the Hydra mechanism.
How does this pacification serve the system?
It strips virility. It redirects that primal drive, the combative spirit, the impulse to build, to conquer, to protect. Redirects all of that into a solitary, isolated fantasy loop. The potential warrior becomes a pacified consumer who prefers the digital fantasy to the hard conquest of the real world.
And the Hydra feeds on that manufactured weakness.
It ensures that the very population that could resist is perpetually distracted and psychologically crippled.
Which leads to the final offer, the bliss trap.
This is the ultimate serpentine offer, the Luciferian allure of the algorithm. You don't need to struggle for truth. We know you better than you know yourself. Just let us guide you effortlessly to your perfect personalized bliss.
It's the offer of comfort and ease, but without truth. The same temptation from the garden.
The moment you hand your autonomy over to an algorithm, the moment you decide that comfort is more important than the hard work of discernment and command, you fall into the trap. It keeps the soul asleep. It keeps you in compliance.
So the verdict is clear. You cannot kill this system by fighting its symptoms. You can't stop the digital morphine by banning one app.
The Hydra will just grow a new one overnight. You have to target the regenerative mechanism itself.
Okay, so if fighting the heads is a losing game, how do you kill a Hydra, the ancient solution?
Is fire. You have to apply fire to the neck of the wound right at the point of severance. You cauterize the tissue to prevent regeneration.
And this brings us to part 4, the condemnization. Executing Exodus.
The Vanguard fire is not reform. Reform is just begging the Hydra to please grow kinder, less toxic heads next time. It's futile. The only true solution is Exodus.
We have to systematically stop engaging with it, stop feeding it, stop relying on the structures of the very system we're fighting.
We cauterize the wound by building a parallel kingdom.
A fundamental redirection of everything. Capital, attention, loyalty. We stop feeding the beast with our tuition dollars, our debt payments, our time in the passive rows, and our energy fighting the shadows on the veil.
The sources outline 3 required pillars for this parallel construction. Moving away from the subscription body model where every service, every credential, every resource is rented from the state or a corporation.
First, we have to build our own oikos.
The Greek term for the home, the family, the sovereign society built around it.
Second, our own money. Financial architecture that rejects the debt trap. And third, our own health, rejecting the pharmakeia dependency model.
And the Schools of Cain audit provides the perfect counterframework for that first pillar. It calls it kingdom education as rival sovereignty.
This is the foundational shift, moving from the factory that produces compliant workers
To the garden that cultivates sovereign souls capable of command.
The shift in sovereignty here is absolute. In the Prussian model, the state is the ultimate sovereign.
In the kingdom model, the primary sovereign moves from the state to God. And critically, delegated authority moves from anonymous bureaucrats and experts to parents and the family.
That is the ultimate rejection of Fichte's entire project.
And the goal of this parallel system is entirely different. It's not obedience and workforce readiness. It's discipleship, wisdom, and spiritual maturity. This model is designed to actively restore the agency the Prussian system was built to crush.
It emphasizes the child's unique calling, their vocation from God, which is the direct antidote to that languishing mental health crisis.
When you know your mission is divinely given, no amount of external standardization can crush your will.
So this transition from the compliant student to a sovereign commander, it's an internal shift. You have to change your internal language.
Which brings us to the very core of this entire sequence, the grammar of command.
If the system's historical design is to destroy free will and install this internalized self-policing obedience,
then reclaiming that will through the highest form of language is not just a psychological trick. It is the ultimate act of defiance. We have to stop asking politely and start commanding the self and the chaos around us.
we're talking about the imperative mood, prostactica, the God mode of grammar. In English, we soften everything. Could you please? I would like you to.
In Koine Greek, the language of command, the king commands. The imperative mood is the language of creation itself. Genotos phos, let there be light. It's an instantaneous, non-negotiable command. It's an action based on unyielding will.
And the listener, the guardian, has to internalize this grammar to reverse the compliance programming.
The audit provides specific drill commands, a vocabulary of power to assert internal sovereignty against the Hydra's symptoms.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first command, stand. The word is daily.
Staley.
Staley. And this isn't just standing up. It's an active command to hold your ground, right? In the face of an attack, like in Ephesians 6.1c. Stand, therefore. Exactly. When the digital morphine is pulling at you, when the debt anxiety is trying to crush you, you don't negotiate with your fear. You command the self to hold its position. Stothi. Stop retreating. Hold the line.
Okay, what's the second command? This one feels vital for today's world.
Be silent. The word is aire, fimuteri.
And the literal meaning is, it's brutal. Be muzzled.
It is a muzzle order. It's not a polite request. It's the same word Isis used on the demon and, crucially, on the physical storm that was about to sink the boat. You command the internal self-doubt, the external media chaos, the financial worries. You command them to cease transmission. Pharmakeia, muzzle the noise.
The third command, here.
A coup. And this isn't passive hearing. It's intense, intentional listening. It's the command for the Shema. Listen to me.
This is about prioritizing authoritative input. When the system is speaking lies through the shadows on the veil, you command your household, your oikos, or even just your own mind.
Akutan logon. Hear the word. You are ordering the self to prioritize the true source of authority and wisdom over the calculated noise of the Hydra.
And finally, walk. Pharmakeia. This is more than just physical movement. It means to conduct one's life, to order one's steps, to regulate one's behavior.
It's the command given to the paralyzed man. Rise, take up thy bed and walk. It's the command to stop being crippled. By debt, by anxiety, by addiction, by the apathy programming. It is the command to begin ordering your life according to your own sovereign will, to take the necessary steps of exodus, to build, to move, to act. Pharmakeia.
So the practice for the listener is to internalize this, to shift from the language of compliance to the language of command.
The exercise in the sources is designed to be visceral, to reprogram that internal police force Fictin installed.
You look in the mirror, you see the face that has been programmed for compliance, you point at the reflection.
And you command the self, the part of you that wants to retreat and avoid conflict. Stay, stand. Assert sovereignty over your own ground.
And then you command the chaos, the structural noise trying to sedate you. Pharmakeia. Be muzzled. Muzzle the digital noise, the debt stress, the programming that tells you to wait for permission.
And this really connects it all. If the entire system is designed to destroy free will, then reclaiming that will through the highest, most definitive form of language, that is the ultimate act of defiance.
It's the cauterization of the Prussian gene inside your own mind. The final step, turning the student into the commander.
Absolutely.
So to synthesize all of this today, the iron veil is there to obscure the real operators, forcing us to waste our energy fighting puppets. The Hydra mechanism guarantees that fighting symptoms is always a losing game.
And the path to victory isn't reform. It's not about petitioning the system. It's exodus. It's cauterization, starving the beast of your capital and attention, and building a parallel kingdom based on sovereignty.
The time for asking permission is over. The time for petitioning the Hydra to be kinder, that is finished.
The final command to you, the listener, is this. Stop swinging at the heads. Step behind the iron veil and see the true body of control. Starve the beast of your attention, your obedience, and your capital. And build the city of God, the sovereign territory where Stothi and a coup are the law, not compliance to external authority.
And our final provocative thought for you to take with you, connecting Fika's original intent with your reality right now. The Prussian system successfully trained generations to value the right answer, compliance, external validation over true critical inquiry, and internal sovereignty. So if your life is driven by external metrics, test scores, likes on social media, credentials, job titles, rather than by an internal command, rather than Stothi or a coup, we have to ask, are you truly free? Or are you just a highly sophisticated, obedient subject still operating perfectly on Ficta's 1807 design specification? Consider that as you begin to practice your command grammar.